ingenious, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Rock are classified by the three standard mineral and chemical composition, the texture of the constituent particle, and the forming processes. Ingenious rock are formed when molten magma cools. They are divided into two main categories, intrusive rocks and volcanic or extrusive rocks. Intrusive rocks result when magma cools and crystallizes slowly in the Earth's crust, granite, for example, while volcanic rocks result in the magma reaches the surface of the Earth and cooled rapidly. Basalt, for example, the crystal of granite in deep places is bigger than that of the basalt of the Earth's surface. This is because the faster molten magma cools, the smaller the size of the crystal becomes. Extrusive rocks, magma, basalt, dark color, rhyolite, light color, granite, intrusive rocks, very fine crystal, basalt, granite, 3 milli, medium coarse size crystal. The process of forming igneous rock, medium, dark overall rock color, light, gabbro, diorite, granite, intrusive rock. Sedimentary rocks are formed by deposition of sediment, organic matter, or chemical deposit. These layers are pressed by upper layers, which are relatively newly deposited over a long period of time. As sedimentary rock form in layers relatively near the Earth's surface, they may contain the fossil of past living things. The process of forming sedimentary rocks: conglomerate, sandstone, limestone, shale, mudstone. Metamorphic rocks are rocks that change from one type to another. These are formed by a change of temperature and pressure. In this case, temperature and pressure must be sufficiently high to change the original type of rocks. The transformation of one rock type to another is called rock cycle. Each type of rock is changed and destroyed when it is forced out of its equilibrium condition. Igneous rock, such as basalt, may break down and dissolve and expose to the atmosphere. Due to the driving force of the rock cycle, tectonic plate, and the water cycle, rock do not remain in equilibrium. The rock cycle explains how the three rock types relate to one another and how change process from one type to another over time. The rock cycle. Extrusive igneous rock, magma. Intrusive igneous rock, a leaping surface, weathering, transportation, barrier, sedimentation, sedimentary rock, deep barrier, heating process, metamorphic rock, omnipotent, melting, crystallization, molten rock from core and mantle. Special term: foliation. Foliation is usually formed by the preferred orientation of a mineral with a rock. This is a result of some physical force upon a growth of minerals. This planar fabric of foliation typically forms right angles to the principal stress direction. Before deformation, horizontally bedded sediment After deformation, polyd metamorphic rocks. Foliation. Change in the Earth's surface. Weathering. The majority of rocks are formed in high temperature in igneous and many metamorphic rocks, and was under great pressure, igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks, but in the absence of oxygen and water. If later these rocks became exposed on the Earth's surface, they will contact water and oxygen in the air. They also experience release pressure and changing temperature. Therefore, they are vulnerable to weathering. Weathering refers to a disintegration of rocks in its original state. Weathering is therefore the natural breakdown of rocks, can be distinguished from erosion, from which need not help any movement of material. Weathering, mass movement, erosion. Weathering is the first stage of change of the landscape. It's loose material, which can therefore be transported by such agent of erosion as running water, ice, seawater, and wind. The degree of weathering depends upon the structure and mineral composition of rocks, local climate, and vegetation, and the length of time of the weathering. There are two main types of weathering. One, mechanical or physical weathering, is the disintegration of rock into smaller particles by mechanical process, but without any change in the chemical composition of dead rock. It's more likely to occur in areas without vegetation, such as desert, high mountain, and Arctic regions. Physical weathering usually processes sand. 2. Chemical weathering is the disintegration of rock resulting from chemical change. It produces change in the substance. Rock usually forms clay. Chemical weathering is more likely to take place in warmer, more humid climate with much vegetation. It should be noticed that although either mechanical or chemical weathering may be locally dominant, both processes usually operate together rather than separately. Soil formation. In addition to erosion and weathering, rocks on the surface of the earth are affected by physical, chemical, biological, and artificial processes. We call this process the soil formation. Average soil, mineral matter, weathered parent rock 40%, air 25%, water 25%, biota 5%, organic matter 5%. Parent material. When the soil developed from underlying rock, its minerals largely depend on its rock. Parent material contribute to the depth, texture, drainage, and quality. Nutrient content of a soil also influence its color. Climate. Climate determines the type of soil is a global scale. The distribution of soil type corresponds closely to pattern of climate and vegetation. Climate affects the rate of weathering of the parent rock. The most rapid breakdown happens in hot, humid environment. Climate and soil. Amount of vegetation. Non-moderate high temperature. Vegetation. Temperature. Precipitation. Round precipitation. Tropics. Desert. Parent material. Temperature region. Arctic. Soil. Organism biota. Plants microorganisms such as bacteria and animals all interact in the nutrient cycle. Plants take mineral nutrients from soil and return them to it after their life. This recycling of plant nutrients is achieved by the activity of microorganisms, which assist in the decomposition and decay of dead vegetation. At the same time, small organisms, worm and ant, mix the soil and let air into it, Human activity is increasingly affecting soil development through additional fertilizer and by plowing, draining, or irrigating land. Time. Soils usually take a long time to form, perhaps up to 400 for 10 mm, and under extreme conditions, 1000 years for 1 mm. It can take 3000 to 12,000 years to produce sufficient depths of mature soil of farming. Newly forming soil retain many characteristics of the parent material from which they have developed. With time, they acquire new characteristics resulting from the addition of organic matter, the activity of organisms, and washing. Section of oil. Organic matter. Layer of plant animal body remaining a relatively undecomposed form. Surface soil. Layer of mineral soil is the most organic matter accumulation and soil life. Plant roots in this layer consume iron, clay, aluminum, organic compounds, and other soluble constituents. Subsoil. This layer accumulates iron, clay, aluminum, and organic compounds. Substratum. Layer of soil parent material. Slope and mass movement. The term mass movement describes all downhill movement of weathered material due to gravity. However, it excludes movement of material by transpiring agents such as wind or water. Apart from it, it calls the process by transporting agent erosion. When the gravitational force exceeds the force of resistance, landslide occurs and material start to move downward. A slope is a dynamic open system affected by groundwater, biotic, climatic, and gravitational input. Although, by definition, mass movement refers only to the downhill movement of material under the force of gravity, in reality, water is usually present and assists the process. Mass movement is an important part of the erosion process, as it moves material from higher places to lower places.